Hello, and today we're going to be reviewing the Ryobi RY120350 Power Cleaner. Now, just as a little bit of a caveat at the beginning of this video, this is a power cleaner. This is not a power washer. If you're looking for a power washer, then you will be disappointed if you buy this tool. This is meant for more for people who have either water restrictions or just have an area where they don't have a way of getting pressurized water or an electrical outlet to power a power washer. So at the end of the day, it's a useful tool, but if you're looking for a power washer and you end up buying this tool, you will be disappointed. Now with that being said, let's get started. Okay, starting off at the bottom of the tool, we have the 18-volt battery compartment. The battery compartment is water resistant and will be able to protect the battery against splashes and possibly a quick drop in a lake if you're able to recover it quick enough. It doesn't say that it's waterproof, so I wouldn't actually trust it all that much. But it definitely does protect against splashes at least, although I don't really think that you would have to worry anyway, because Ryobi batteries have the L-shaped design where the contacts sit further up in the body of the tool, and so there's less chance that they'll be exposed or have a risk of pooling around the connectors, which could short out your battery. So overall, I do think that it's a good design, but I'm not really necessarily sure if the waterproof compartment is actually necessary. Maybe if you're working around a lake, it's a nice feature to have, but then again, if you drop in the lake, there's a good chance that it'll just ruin the whole tool or you'll lose the whole tool. So yeah, I'm not really sure if it's something that they actually needed to do, but it is an interesting feature. So moving on. Okay, moving upward, we have the grip. Now the grip has a built-in safety as well as a rubberized finish. Now the rubberized finish has a nice texture to it, which will definitely help keep your hands in place. And the safety is, well, quite frankly, I never use the safety because it's an enclosed handle, and so the trigger never gets activated accidentally. And to be quite frank, I just don't really see the point in having a safety on this particular tool. I guess that is useful. I'm glad they included it, but I just never use it. So yeah, moving on. Okay, moving on to the trigger. The trigger it's a simple on and off trigger. There's no variable speeds, obviously, with this, since this is a power cleaner. And quite frankly, I'm just not all that impressed by the trigger on this particular tool. There's a little bit of a bump, it's not a smooth pull, and it just is not that, well, smooth operating. I personally would have preferred maybe a little bit higher quality trigger on this particular tool, but it is adequate and it does its job. It just isn't as good as it could be. So yeah, moving on. Okay, moving on, we have the quick connect or inlet port. The inlet port is, well, it's a quick connect system, and it works really well with all the included accessories, like the 20-foot siphon hose, the 2-liter bottle adapter, and the quick connect adapter for a regular hose. So it is good, it's perfectly adequate, and it does its job just fine. But for me personally, it just wasn't what I needed. So what I ended up doing was I changed it out for a quick connect system that Walmart featured. And I actually used this quick connect system with regular hose attachments or just regular hoses. And so this actually works way better for me because I ended up making a portable water tank for this particular tool, because that's how I ended up using the tool. And that's how I use it most of the time. So at the end of the day, if you decide to leave it with the original one, or if you break the original one and you're looking for a cheap replacement, the Walmart one works great, and it does a good job for if you're wanting to use a regular hose with this particular tool. So yeah, moving on. Okay, moving on to the hose. Now the hose that is included is about 20 feet in length, and it's made out of a transparent material with reinforced webbing to prevent kinking. Overall, it's fairly flexible, although I personally would have preferred it to be a little bit more flexible, but it does do its job just fine. At the end of the hose, there is a filter for when you're drawing water from an unclean source, such as a stock tank, a river, or a lake. And it does a good job at protecting the internals of the tool. Moving upward, we have a bucket clip for if you're using this with a 5-gallon bucket. And then moving upward again, we have a float, which I'm not really sure what the float's used for, but it's there. Yay! More features. And then if you move all the way to the end of the hose, then you have the included quick connect for the included quick connect system. So overall, the hose is decent. Next up, we have the connection point for the wand. Now the connection point on the wand actually has changed since this tool was first released. The first version had a twisting style connector, which you'd have to screw in, and then that's how it would attach to the body. On the newer updated version, it has a quick connect point similar to what is at the end of the first wand, and that means that you'll be able to attach accessories directly to the body, meaning that you'll be able to work in tighter environments rather than having to put them at the end of the wand. So overall, this is definitely a good thing. Now I will say I'm not a huge fan of the proprietary connectors that Ryobi is deciding to integrate into this particular tool. I would have preferred to see a more universal style connector that you could trade out parts and pieces from non-Ryobi products and be able to use them on this particular power washer. And Ryobi does offer a lot of accessories for their tools, but in my opinion, they're pretty much all super overpriced. So yeah, moving on. And next up we have the wand. Now the wand is composed of two different pieces. The first piece being an extension that you can plug in to help you get a longer reach, and the secondary piece is the piece that houses the nozzle, the turbo, the rinse, and the 15°. If you have the secondary generation of this tool, you can actually plug the first piece directly into the body without having to use the extension, but if you have the first generation, you have to use the extension in order to attach the nozzle. So it's better to have the secondary version instead of the first version. Now overall, I haven't noticed any major issues with the wand after 2 years of use, and quite frankly, I'm perfectly happy with it. I know some people would prefer metal, but for me personally, I actually kind of like having the plastic simply because you won't have to worry about getting bent. So at the end of the day, it also gets a pass. And that, last but not least, we have the nozzles. Now the nozzles are on a rotating turret, and we're going to start off with turbo. Turbo is, well, it's useful, but at the same time, it can also be a little bit of a pain. How it works is it's basically a 0° or jet nozzle that has a bead in there that spins around, and it will help you clean up messes quicker, or at least that's what they claim. I've noticed when using it, it can be helpful in certain situations, but in a lot of situations it actually ends up making a bigger mess, and overall it's not something I use all the time. Next up we have the rinse. The rinse is exactly what it sounds like. It's more of a low pressure, high output nozzle. It's good for when you're working around plants or maybe even possibly animals or yourself. So overall it's adequate. Next up we have the 15° nozzle. Overall this is probably the one I use the most, and it definitely seems to provide the best overall just ability to clean. It doesn't spray the debris everywhere like the turbo nozzle does, and it just does a good job. I personally would have preferred to maybe have a 0° or just a straight jet nozzle in addition to what is featured here, but apparently that's too hard for Ryobi to figure out, even though other companies already do that. So at the end of the day, the three options are decent, but it really would have been nice if they would have included a few more options. But it still gets a pass. Now power-wise, this little power cleaner does a fairly decent job when it comes to removing fresh or non-hardened debris. It'll be good for getting rid of mud or soap or just that sort of thing. Fresh bird poop, just light and easy to remove stuff. It doesn't do a very good job when it comes to removing grime or clay debris that's been there for a little while and allowed to harden. And I think if you're looking to wash a car with this, this is going to take you a long time. I like to use this more as a spot cleaner or even as a foam cannon, to be honest. It makes a fairly decent foam cannon if you buy the attachment. Overall, I've been fairly happy with it, and it fulfills a lot of the needs that I personally have. I do have a full-size power washer, but this is much easier and much more portable, and so I end up using this far more often. I pretty much only use the full-size power washer to wash cars anymore. Now, there is an HP version of this one, and I do own that one as well. That one is definitely more powerful, but you have to have HP batteries to use that particular tool at full power. So if you don't have HP batteries, it's kind of pointless to get the upgraded model. So yeah. Okay, let's go through the pros and cons. And first off, as usual, we have 18 volts. 18 volts means that you'll be able to adapt batteries over from other brands via third-party adapters, and you'll be able to use all your 18-volt Ryobi batteries. So overall, I would consider this to be a pro. Battery compartment. The battery compartment on this particular tool is a water-resistant housing, which can be handy in a variety of different situations. So in my opinion, this can be considered a pro. Rubberized grip. Considering that you're going to be working around water, having a rubberized grip is definitely a nice feature, and one that I would definitely consider to be a pro. Long wand. The wand on this particular power cleaner is fairly long, and it will definitely help you reach those hard to get areas, and in my opinion this is a pro. Long hose. The hose that comes with this particular power cleaner is about 20 feet in length, and that's a fairly long hose, and this will come in handy for a variety of different situations, so definitely a pro in my opinion. Turbo. The turbo on this particular power cleaner is a nice option, and it definitely comes in handy. There's quite a few of these power cleaners on the market now, and most of them don't have a turbo function, so having a turbo function built in is a nice option. And the first meh is brushed. It's not brushless, it's brushed. I've had the brushed version for about 2 years, and I haven't had any issues. So it's not really a con, it's not really a pro, it's just meh. And the first con would be the price. Now, when I first purchased mine, it cost about $80, and I actually got mine during Ryobi days, and it cost me $100 with two 4-amp-hour batteries as well as a charger. Today, tool only at Home Depot, you're going to have to pay $100 to get this tool, and in my opinion, that's just not a very good value. A lot has changed over the last 2 years, but in my opinion, this tool is still not worth $100, and I personally would not pay $100 for this tool. So yeah, moving on. And the next con would be the size. This is a fairly oversized tool. I also have the Works Hydro Shot, and it is quite a bit smaller and more compact and just as powerful. So I really think that they decided to go with an oversized approach with this particular tool, and I don't think they needed to do that. So in my opinion, the size is definitely a con. Next con is the proprietary connectors. Now, you can change out the hose connector, but you can't change out the wand connectors. And in my opinion, that means that you're really limited on what you can actually do with this particular power cleaner, because you're going to be stuck with only Ryobi products. I really would have preferred to have seen something with a universal connector when it comes to the wands, and that would have meant that you would have had more options, and that would have meant that you could have brought in different accessories from other tools. But because Ryobi decided to go with proprietary connectors when it comes to the wand, that means that you're pretty much stuck with only Ryobi accessories, which is a disappointment in my opinion. Long wait time. Now what I mean by long wait time is the fact that if you're using the siphon hose, it takes quite a while to get the water to come up through the siphon hose and into the power cleaner. If you're using a pressurized water source, you won't have this issue. It's just the nature of the beast when it comes to a siphon, and it's a problem that all these power cleaners have universally. So in my opinion, this is definitely a con. It's not particularly the Ryobi's fault, but it's just something that the consumer needs to be aware of if you are planning on purchasing one of these power cleaners and using it with a siphon hose. And the last con would be only 3 nozzle settings. Now, the 3 that they include are good, but some of their competitors will give you far more, as in at least 2 to 3 more settings, and in my opinion, it really would not have cost them all that much more to at least give you an additional 1 or 2. I really would have preferred this to have a jet or 0 degree setting, and I just think that that would have made a world of difference on how appealing this tool would be for a lot of people. So because they didn't do that, that's why it's in the con category. And that's it for the pros and cons. Final thoughts on this particular tool, and would I recommend it? I would recommend this tool if you don't have HP batteries and you need a power cleaner and you know what you're getting into. If you do have HP batteries, I would recommend getting the HP version because it's only $20 more expensive, and it will give you an additional 280 PSI, which will definitely help you remove the tougher grime. Now, this is not a power washer, it's a power cleaner, which is something you have to keep in mind. If you get this expecting power washer levels of power, you're going to be disappointed. The best way to view this particular tool is as basically a power or a pressurized water spigot for working in remote areas, and that's what I use mine for. I've created a little portable tank that I use with it, and it works great, and I use it almost once or twice a week. And so quite frankly, I would recommend this as long as you know what you're getting into and you don't mind paying the price. If you have HP batteries, I would definitely recommend the HP version over this particular version. But this is still a good tool and it still does its job just fine. Personally, I would wait and see if it's part of Ryobi days, or I would go over and check on Tool Directs to see if they have any on sale or at a discount. But it's up to you and how you want to spend your money. The price on tools is going up, and quite frankly, it doesn't look like it's going to be coming down anytime soon. So who knows, this might be the best time to buy. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. God bless.